Hey Jose, love the entry for this month's AnimJam. I think it's an amazing shot. I love these kind of body mechanics exercises because you learn so much from it, and I could definitely see that you use some reference here, which is great. I think that's definitely the right way to go. Use reference, practice, and get the body mechanics looking right. So I'm just going to play back once through, and you can see how it looks. Yeah, I think it's like really good work. I love the little settle at the end and the run up. It makes this whole shot feel like much better. Like just having that little settle at the end really helps sell everything. There's definitely some things I think we can improve on. And honestly, most of it is just polish. I think you could just use like maybe like another 10% of polish before I'd say, like, you know, this is like a done and dusted kind of shot. And I love like I love how all the energy feels like coming up to the run, the hands coming out and launching him up and then landing. It all feels great. I think the one biggest thing that stands out to me is if I play back this region here, it's that landing portion where he hits, his waist comes down and then he shoots up. I think there's something strange going on there, and it's mostly to do with how the energy is traveling, really. Like the body at the moment here, if you track the arcs, you'll see what I mean. So we start here, it's all pretty good, and then he kind of comes to a stop, and then he starts moving forward again, and then you can start to see him shoot down quite fast. So I think that's where it's weird for me, is that he goes up and then he has this forward motion, this forward momentum, but there really shouldn't be any forward momentum, like in any extra forward momentum being generated at this point, because all the momentum of the jump happens when he pushes off. So if he hits this point like this, and his forward momentum isn't, like, his body's already stopped here, there's no way he could just continue traveling forward. He would just come straight down to the floor. So I think what you need to really sell is that this forward momentum in this direction is constant. Because right now I feel like if we were to track the curve of him traveling this direction, the curve would be something like, you know, he'd be traveling forward and then it kind of stop, and then he'd traveling forward again, you know, so, or like this way if you were to look at it. So I feel like it shouldn't, the curve definitely shouldn't slow down at this point. And I don't know if it's just a visual illusion, but in 2D space as we're tracking it, you can definitely see that he stops traveling forward and then he begins traveling forward again. And I think that's what is sticking out to me the most, is that like extra energy being generated. And he's also coming down quite fast here. I think if you round out the if you round it out a little bit, so we're having tracking the arcs here, cool. So this is where the forward momentum begins to happen, and there really shouldn't be any at this point being generated. So like this pinch here is what I'm seeing. And I think if you just round out these arcs, round out this arc a little bit, so he's not pinching here, he's still traveling forward and then he's coming down, but it's all like, it's a little bit more linear than what you have, but it'll look like the energy is a little bit better. I think that's the biggest thing, like in terms of what looks the most wrong to me. and the rest of it I think is really just polished stuff. Like I see as he's coming up, there's like a little bit of like a little bit of knee dirt there. You can see it's like it's coming in and then it's going back out. So it's out, it goes in, and it goes back out, and then it goes back in. So I think if there's a way for you to just clean that up a little bit, is, you know, you can see it's popping around just a little bit. It's like a minor thing. It's all just like tiny little polish things. And some other things I think would be like this rounded back here. So like we tend to not be able to rotate this upper portion of our torso very easily. Most of the spinal rotation happens towards the bottom because this upper portion of our body tends to be more rigid because of our rib cage. So you know, I think it's okay here, like this is fine, but as you go further and he lands, you can see it's just like it's starting to pinch here quite a bit. So if there was a way to just kind of lessen that pinch, this like upper portion, so you might need to just like, I don't mind how he's rotated, like this being the end point, but you might need to just figure out how to back out. So maybe like transfer some of the rotations down to these lower controls, just so that it's a little bit nicer and rounder there. And I know why you did this, it's to kind of have like a little bit more overlap on the upper portion, but I think it's just a bit too extreme at the moment. And I think the few other things that stick out to me would be this arm here. As he swings around, you can see it stops here and then it comes back up and then it comes back up again. So really the energy should feel a little bit more like fluid, because all the energy is so kinetic at the moment. It's hard to just stop mid motion and then change, you know, it'd be more one fluid action. So I think really it's just like getting the arms to come back down and then around in one fluid motion. That would really help just kind of feel less CG and more like, you know, things are like still moving. And then yeah, like there's a few tiny little things, like maybe pull this arm out just a tad and then change the arc a little bit. I can see the arc kind of feels like it's very linear, it just goes from there to there. So maybe if you have his arm come out and then out here, maybe like so, and then back down there, so the arc is a little bit more like this rather than just like that. And I think the last thing would be the flappy toes. I don't see it so much in the beginning. I see this big move there, which is maybe a little bit extreme, so you might want to be like just a tad bit less extreme than that, so it doesn't feel like a pop so much. And here is where I see the flappy toes. I think it's a little bit unnatural to have so much flap in the toes. I know it's probably quite subtle when you're animating it, but it definitely feels like too much for like a realistic shot, so to speak. So I would probably tone down the amount of bend by maybe like maybe even 50%, just so it doesn't feel so flappy. And a few small things at the end would be like, you could probably animate the shoulders a little bit more. So like as he comes up, you could just drag the shoulders down a little bit, maybe not so much like I drew, but just a tiny bit, and then have it come up just a tiny bit, and then finally at the end it settles back to where you have it. And same for the beginning. I might like, if it was me, I might like try to add like just a tiny bit more shoulder action into this arm swing, because there's a lot of arm movement, but I feel like there could be a little bit more shoulder movement to in order to support all that like big arm movement. Really, like, even when I'm doing this, you can see like how much my shoulders are moving. It's very difficult to do these actions without having quite a lot of shoulder movement. But yeah, I think overall it's great work. Maybe just a tiny bit more overlap on the head when he's coming down here, just like a tiny bit more overlap. But yeah, overall it's a great shot. I think just really tiny minor things. I think you nailed it with most of the action, the timing. It all feels right. It all feels pretty realistic. So yeah, awesome work, man. Hey, if you've enjoyed this critique, we have a lot more over at our animation Facebook group, AnimJam. Every month we hold an animation competition where the winner will get a free critique from an industry professional. But AnimJam is more than just a competition. It's a community where you can learn more about animation, share your work, and hopefully be inspired. We have members from all over the world at all different skill levels. There are members from big studios such as Framestore, Sony, Naughty Dog, Luma Pictures, and the list goes on. The group is growing at an exponential rate, and it's super exciting to see all the great work being done. In the future, there's a lot more planned for the group, so join up to stay involved. We'll see you there.